Hello and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where usually we're interviewing runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences, but today we're back with another Wednesday mini episode. Well guys, I am so happy to be back. I am officially a week post Chicago Marathon, and there was only a week break on episodes for y'all, but I batch filmed a lot of episodes before Chicago so that I could just focus on wrapping up training and then focus on the race and focus on recovery. So this is the first time that I've sat down and actually filmed an episode in quite some time, so it just feels right. There's a whole lot of Chicago content coming out, so do not fear that this is just scratching the surface of Chicago. I've got my fourth marathon episode coming out very soon, and then my mom's first marathon episode will come out shortly after that. So I'm not going to talk a ton about my Chicago experience today, but we are going to talk about post-marathon recovery, which is very much what I'm in right now. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. We're talking post-marathon recovery today. All right, so when it comes to post-marathon recovery, I have one hard and fast rule, and that is do not return to running until you miss it or until you want to run. I think that this is a big lesson that I've learned throughout several marathons, but I think it's the one thing that's helped me continue to come back to the marathon distance, and the reason why it's one of my favorite distances is because I've learned to not rush back into running. We talk a lot on the show about building this long-term relationship with running. That's exactly what we're doing when we're waiting to return to running until we want to, instead of jumping into another training block too quickly, which I have done, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. I'd like to say that I'm fortunate enough to have a variety of experiences through 4 marathons, meaning like each recovery has been a little bit different, and I've been able to learn something a little bit different from each race that I was recovering from. My first marathon was rough. That was probably my worst recovery, even compared to the race where I hurt myself. My first marathon still was the marathon that I had the most trouble recovering from. I remember I was sore for weeks. I got the post-marathon flu, which we'll talk about a little bit more. So I got really sick after the race. I was stiff. I did not want to run after my first marathon. I was motivated by the experience and the fact that I had done something really hard, but there was nothing in me that was like, I need to go sign up for a second marathon right this second, right? Like, I felt really, really, really off, and I was on a mission for my second marathon to figure out why that was and to figure out how I could recover quicker. A big reason why I don't think that I recovered very well for my first marathon is I did not know that you should keep moving after your first marathon. As soon as I crossed that finish line, my first thought was, get me a chair, get me a bench, get me the grass, I don't care, I need to get off of my feet. My feet hurt so bad, my back hurt so bad, and I was in such a rush to just get off of my feet. I proceeded to go find a chair. I think it was like a folding chair. I went and got in that chair, I planted myself down, and I think I sat there for a good 20 minutes directly after I finished the race. And then I got up and took some pictures and walked around a little bit, but then right back into the car, and then as soon as I got home, I got right into the bath, sat in the bath, and then after the bath, I got right into the bed and took a nap. Like, I was pretty sedentary the full first day, and I remember the first time that I got out of that bed after I had laid for hours, I felt like I had been hit by a truck. Back then, I was so naive to running that I was like, oh, this is just what first marathoners go through. As I started to research more for my second marathon, I realized that a big reason why I felt like that was because I didn't continue to move after my marathon. I went from running for 5.5 hours to a dead stop, and my body didn't know how to react to something like that. I also got what I know now is called the marathon flu. You might have heard of it before, but it's basically your immune system is so susceptible to getting sick after you run a marathon, especially if you're traveling and you're in airports and things like that, that if you don't take the proper precautions, if you don't, hydrate your body, if you don't anticipate getting sick, then sometimes your body can react by getting the marathon flu and taking you down in terms of being sick as well. So nobody likes that experience. My number one recommendation after a marathon to help with recovery is to continue to move, and I was able to put that piece together more in my second marathon. So for my second marathon, what I did for recovery, the first thing that I did after I ran my marathon is I continued to walk. So I walked around and took pictures with people. I stayed on my feet. We went and got some bagels. I went inside the store with my boyfriend to get bagels. I was like walking around the yard when we got home. I just tried to move as much as I could, and I tried to do some light stretching and just kind of keep myself moving throughout the day until I was ready to like settle down, watch TV, and go to bed for the night. And that alone, that period, that point blank was a huge difference maker for me. The other thing that I did was I continued to take in fluids, and I prioritized getting protein in quick directly after the race. For my first marathon, I felt like I couldn't stomach anything after the race after taking so many gels, but I've learned since that it's like getting in some protein within 30 minutes of your marathon can do wonders for your body and for your immune system. Same thing with getting fluids in throughout the day as you continue to walk around and continue to do things. Like you used up all of your fuel in the marathon, so you need to now replenish and get back to normal throughout the day after your marathon. So the lessons I learned from that first marathon is continue to walk around, get some fluids in you, get some protein in you quick, and try to move around as much as you can before you get sedentary for the evening or for like settling down for the night. Once you're feeling a little bit more recovered, so for me after that second marathon, my first marathon took me 2 weeks to recover at least. Second marathon, I was recovered within 2-3 days. Third marathon, I was injured. I still felt recovered besides the injury within 3 or 4 days. And Chicago, I would say day 2, I was feeling like I was ready to run. So my hard and fast rule, regardless of the experience, regardless of how long it takes you to recover, is don't return to running until you miss it. I learned this lesson pretty hard in between my second and third marathon, and I know I've talked about it a little bit, but I'm going to touch on it again. So my second marathon went so well. I PR'd by 30 minutes. Like I said, the recovery was really great. I have already had another marathon on the calendar that I was feeling like I could PR again. I was just in really good shape, and I had made a lot of adjustments from my first marathon that was making me feel really confident for marathon number 3. But you underestimate, I think, or at least I underestimated just what an 18-week training plan means, like what it means to deload and then build back up to another marathon. Because when I looked at the calendar, when I had first signed up for both of them, it seemed doable. But after I ran my second marathon and realized I only really had like 2 or 3 weeks off before I had to start training over again and start the build again, I was like, this is a lot. Like this is a lot of running, and this is a long time to be running and training for a specific time goal in a row. And by the time I started my plan for Eugene for my third marathon, I was dreading it, honestly. I was not excited to start training again. I was excited to run the race. Like I had really big goals for it, but the idea of starting the entire process over again was really intimidating to me. And I felt really rushed. Like I didn't feel like I had enough time off, and I didn't want to return to running. I didn't miss it. I wasn't ready. And I felt forced into starting that new training block because I had to, right? The race was coming up. So that's my hard and fast rule for recovery. And that's the lesson I learned pretty hard in between 2 and 3 is that, gosh, don't return to running until you miss it. After Eugene, after my injury, after everything that I went through with that race, I didn't run for a month. I want to say it was maybe even more than a month. I was like, I have enough time before I have to start training for Chicago to do this, and I am not going to return until I have the urge to go out and go for a run. And that was so freeing. It changed my relationship with running, quite honestly, because I was like, I wasn't feeling pressured to get up and do something that I didn't want to do, you know? By the time I was ready to run again, I was really ready to run again. My mind was ready, my body was ready. I just, that I think alone is how you preserve this long-term relationship with running that we're constantly talking about on this show. Is running should be fun, and you should want to do it, and you should miss it every once in a while. And in between marathons and giving yourself enough time to really miss it and really want to do it, that's so beneficial to building that long-term relationship. Once you're ready to return to running, you want to let your body guide you back to running. If you're still feeling any soreness or feeling any that post-marathon flu that we talked about coming on, these are signs that you're not quite ready to jump into your block yet. So you could mentally feel like you want to run, but let your body also guide you back into training. Like in between marathon 3 and 4, in between the one where I was injured in Chicago, if there was any point where my knee or whatever was hurting me to a point where I didn't feel like I should be running, I wouldn't have started training yet. Like I would have done a more condensed training block. But you want to make sure that you are also listening to your body in that process and not just your mind, because you might be mentally ready to start running before your body is, and it's very important that you give yourself and your body that time to recoup before you jump into another block or jump into running again. That slow return to running could look like walking and light stretching. That's what's helped me out a lot. Like I said, after marathon number 2, doing some walking and some light stretching is what got me back to feeling healthy a little bit quicker. So even if you are feeling physically ready to move, you could turn that into biking, you could turn that into walking, you could do some light stretching or yoga or whatever feels good on the muscles without having to go out and actually run. So there's some things that you can do to fill that void if you're feeling ready to get back into moving, especially because when you're marathon training, you're in such a rigid schedule schedule, and sometimes it can be kind of depressing. They call it like the post-marathon blues, to run a race and then not be in your routine anymore. So if you need to keep that routine, you can keep doing it in other ways, like biking, like walking, and like stretching. Now let's talk a little bit about what I did for Chicago. So because Chicago was definitely the quickest recovery, it's the first time that I've been ready to run in like 2 days, where I'm like, let's run this thing back. Like, let's, it's the first time I didn't have another race on the calendar, so maybe that had something to do with it, of just me feeling antsy to put something on the calendar. But I was ready to rock in like 2 days, and I think that there were a couple of things I did different this time that really helped with that. One definitely was I wasn't going for a PR on this race, and I think that going for a PR and pushing your body to the limits versus like a party pace marathon is completely different. And this party pace style of marathon definitely left me feeling like I had a lot more to give at the end of the race. So keep that in mind as I'm talking about some of these other things, that certainly had a big factor in me recovering quickly. But the first thing that I did, and I planned this on purpose, my mom and I stayed in a hotel that was about a mile away from the start line, and Ubers, first of all, were an absolute nightmare. I don't even know if there would have been a shuttle to get us back to our hotel if we wanted one. So there was going to be a mile that we had to walk to the start line, and then a mile that we were going to have to walk back from the race back to our hotel after. And I did that on purpose because I knew that my mom wasn't going to want to walk, but we were forced to because we didn't have any other way of getting back to the hotel. That mile walk alone 100% helped us the next day when we were starting to move around again. So that mile walk was the first thing that we did. Made sure that we did that. The next thing that we did was we both went back to the room and got some heat on us. So we both took a bath, or I took a shower, she took a bath, and what we did from there is compression socks on, legs up. That's something that I learned after my third marathon with my injury from a PT that I was working with, is get some heat on your body so that you don't get stiff. And then as soon as you're out of the bath and you're still warm, get some compression socks on and get your feet up in the air. I was literally laying on my back with my feet up against the headboard of my hotel bed. That was a great way to do it. And did that for about 15 minutes at a time. Just watch some TV and relax. Like, you could still be sedentary and still do things for yourself in the room that help aid in recovery. And that's one of the things that definitely helped me. And then the third thing that I did was I threw some pillows on the ground so that I wasn't sitting on the hard ground. And that's where I did some light stretching. So stretching the hips, stretching the knees, stretching the ankles, like anything that feels sore, just doing some light stretching around that. Definitely helps you not feel like you're going to cramp up. I know that for my first and second marathon, even the second marathon that I recovered really well from, I still had some cramping the night of the marathon, like the night after. And I think that doing some light stretching and continuing, like I said, to take in some fluids and get in lots of protein after you run, those are the things that are going to help you with cramping and help you recover quicker. All right, well, hopefully that was helpful. I just want to recap a few things because that was a lot. So the things that the high points that I hope you take away from this episode for post-marathon recovery are: hard and fast rule, do not return to running until you miss it. That is so important for the long-term relationship, and you should never feel like you're rushing into another block. Speaking from experience, that's what leads to injury. That's what leads to you not loving running as much as you should. That's what leads to races going the way that my third marathon went for me. So don't return to running until you miss it. Don't rush into a block until you're ready. Let your body guide you back to running, right? If you're feeling soreness or you're feeling that post-marathon flu coming on because your immune system is more susceptible, take a step back. Do not rush back into anything. Focus on those little light movements like walking, stretching, getting your legs up, getting compression socks on. But outside of that, listen to your body. Even if you're mentally ready to run, your body's going to give you more cues than our brains are going to give us. So make sure that we're not rushing back into running if our body's not ready to. After the race, getting some steps in is most important. If you can walk a mile, but really just like get moving, take the pictures, don't sit down right away, force yourself to get up and move around because that's what's going to help you recover so much quicker. Get some protein in your body within 30 minutes and then continue to drink liquids throughout the day. I, from personal experience, would recommend getting some compression socks and getting your feet up in the air and doing some light stretches, maybe with like some pillows or something soft on the ground. There's a million ways to recover after a marathon, but these are some of the things that have worked for me and some of the athletes that I've interviewed on the show. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode. In literally 4 minutes, I'm about to film my mom's first marathon story with her. So we got that episode coming out soon, and then my fourth marathon story will be coming out shortly before or after that episode. So stay tuned for lots of Chicago content, and we'll see you on the next one.